Um, I'm a person of regime. I'm very disciplined. And one of the things I do is, after I've made my early morning cup of coffee, is go into my cell phone, switch it on, check my messages, look at my emails. And about a month ago, I opened my emails and I thought, these damned West Africans, they've now broken my spam barrier. And there was a email asking me to speak. And it wasn't entitled Dearly Beloved. This is horrible because I can't hear any of you being there. I'll get used to it. And it was Davy Irvin's. And I phoned it back and I said, "Are you sure you want me?" And he said, "Yes, you've been recommended by a couple of people." And I said, "Well, I have to ask for a day out from my retirement village to do this." And here I am, and I'm delighted to speak to you about third stream income, the expectations and the reality. And on there, you will see that I have got the triple helix. Now, when this was first introduced into university thought processes, university did what they always do, which was make it very complex and quite unattainable for ordinary people. And it was only when I looked and thought, well, it's third stream, and it's a stream, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a raging torrent. It's not the Zambesian flood. And it's a stream that you have to channel and care for. It is obviously not just made up of fundraising, and there is the enterprise element to it as well. But you'll be hearing more of that this afternoon after me. So, when I sat down and thought about speaking to you, I thought, well, who exactly am I speaking to? Are they financial directors at universities? Are they head of purchasing? Are there people from fundraising there? And then I decided, Heather, cut it. Speak to Henny van der Westhuizen. Tell him the things that you would like to have told him 20 years ago. So there we are. So I envisage you all sitting in that posh wood-paneled room, taking your annual expenditure budget for the following year. And you're going to immediately subtract from that your state subsidy and your student fees. And there's a problem there, isn't there? I'm sure a lot of you are coping with NSFAS issues. And there's this gaping hole, this missing third. And what do you all do? You cross your arms and think, well, we'll just have to raise it. Easy peasy. Unfortunately, the reality is that it isn't like that at all. And obviously, the expectations are very different in different universities in South Africa in different situations. There are some universities that came into the new South Africa with lovely war chests. And they've been able to dip into those war chests and keep them going while they build up their fundraising activities. However, the reality is that donations are shrinking, whether we like it or not. And it costs more per rand these days to raise a rand. So what is the norm? What would you like to encourage your fundraising departments to aim for? And I would suggest that they're doing a jolly good job if it's costing 20 cents to the rand. 25 cents is okay. But in some of the SADC countries, their fundraising departments don't even pay their salaries. And that's sad. So that I would keep that and discuss that often. Put it on the agenda, because it isn't on the agenda now. There's also enormous downsizing of companies and the reduction of staff. More unemployment. People who are unemployed and not earning money are not going to give money. Inflation makes an enormous difference. And then, sadly, there's a disenchantment towards tertiary institutions at the moment. And you can shoot me down in flames immediately. But mostly, people shake their heads and just don't know what is really going on in tertiary institutions. This is exacerbated by bad media, and there's media all the time. The gentleman who drove my taxi this morning when I came here talked about 2 incidents of violence at tertiary institutions. And if he's talking like that, what are the others saying? And then lastly, have we ever calculated what fees must fall has cost us? By the way, I'm not here to talk to you or at you. I'd like us to have a conversation. So at any time, if you'd like to challenge me, and I mean that in the old-fashioned way, don't hesitate to stop me and call for the mic. What must I press, the red or the green? Thank you. So, you really need to get your ducks in a row. And that means you, Henny, you also need to know what's going on in your university. If you're the man who's going to be called to task, or the woman, to explain this yawning chasm. So who? Who am I talking to? Who are these people? Well, you are. And I've been very privileged in my life to work for a couple of really superb people. And the ones who get kisses are the people that I report to who donate. Because I believe you have no moral right to ask anybody to give you money for anything unless you're prepared to give yourself. And the other side of the coin is the disenfranchised employee who says, oh, that'll be the day I'll give them a penny of my hard-earned money. But you do need to be a donor yourself, because then you will know what it feels like, and you will also know how you're being treated as a donor, not as a peer, a colleague, or a fellow employee. Probably the most important person is your Vice-Chancellor. And we're seeing across the world an increased percentage of Vice-Chancellor time being spent on fundraising. Harvard and Princeton, they will admit openly that the majority of their time is spent on fundraising. The universities in Britain met the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Aberdeen, and he said, this is my job. This is what I'm doing now. I can delegate, and I can have deputy Vice-Chancellors doing it all, but I have to drive this. Every fundraising initiative needs an academic leader, because you can't employ me to speak the same way as the academic can speak about the need and the desire and the dreams that they have. And then you need a good fundraising department with experienced and credible staff. And I know this is a problem, because I know that they're few and far between. And I also think the turnover of really good staff is enormous. I had a person visit me from a university in the SADC country. She'd been an academic and she'd applied for this job, and she was enticed by the salary. And she sat down, and her very first question to me was, what percentage do you earn for every rand that you raise? And just look at me, huh? What sort of answer do you think I gave her? I said, I don't earn a penny. But there are fundraisers who will work for you for commission. And if that suits you, that's all right. But you need a really credible staff. You need to have people who are passionate. Passionate people raise funds. You've got to be able to sell it in such a way that people will buy into it. Right, so you need to have projects. You need to know at the highest level in the university what you're fundraising for. And this does cause problems, because that person who runs the choir does really want to raise funds to take everybody to Bucharest. But that may not be one of the university's projects. Then you need to, before you move on, you need to actually examine the prospects and the prospect development. So before you want to build a library, before you even put pen to paper, you need to work out and brainstorm where you're going to get the money from. Is there anybody here from UJ? No? Yes, down there. Did you raise your funds for your library, and has it been built? This isn't working. Is somebody going to take a mic there? Thank you. Thanks. Sorry about that. Would you repeat it?
Yes. I'm involved in the procurement side, not in the fundraising at all. So I'm not 100% sure of where they stand with it.
Oh, right. Thank you very much. Then you need to do your research. So let's say you are fundraising for a library. Are you the 4th university in South Africa that is currently fundraising for a library? You've got to divide the prospects by 4 then. Then you have to do this really important thing, which is matching the people, the organizations, the companies, the trusts and foundations together with your dream. And then you have to cultivate the relationship. And then you need to solicit. And I always laugh about that because I think of my mother who's been long dead, and if she'd ever thought her daughter went around soliciting, there would have been big problems. And then you go into the stewardship role. So what? My biggest advice to universities and those of you who are in finance is that you need to set at the highest level in the institution fundraising goals. It's essential that you all sing from the same page, that you're not having in-house fighting against a shrinking rand. With realistic time and income budget lines, you cannot start fundraising today, and my forte is actually fundraising for big buildings, but you can't fundraise for today to bank it tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. A good cycle and a healthy cycle will be about 2.5 to 3 years before you can start ticking off and banking the money. But most of all these days, to secure your incoming funding, you need to set up accountability processes and procedures. Don't leave this to a little department in a cottage somewhere on campus to do their own thing. And these need to be tabled at the highest level of a university, especially financial reports. If you are in the finance area of a university, are you checking and seeing what the fundraising department are writing and sending out to donors about where the money's gone? And are you actually seeing that the money is being spent where it should be? In one of the SADC universities that I worked in, the money was not going where the donor allocated it should go. They were just using it as a fund to dip into. Every single project needs to have an operating plan with a goal. And then it needs a case for support. Now, what is a case for support? Well, I believe the country that produces the most wonderful case for support is, in fact, the Canadian universities. A case for support is a tool for selling and can be used by academics, fundraisers, and the highest echelon in the university. It's the current look, feel, taste, and legitimacy of a university. And if you're hard-pressed, I would say to you, spend money on that before you spend money on yet another fundraiser. And you need to have a great communication department and a PR department to back you up and help. And of course, a database is essential. And there are 1 or 2 really good systems available in South Africa. So where do you go for this money? Well, the best place to go to start are previous generous donors. And you might not even be going to them to ask them for more money for this project. You might be going to them to say, we're planning to do this. Who do you think we should go to? How should we go? Would you come with us? Because these people are far more credible than we are, and use them to open doors. You need allied corporates. Allied corporates, for example, we had to build a whole enormous section at Wits University for the engineering department. And this particular section would house the School of Mining and the School of Electrical Engineering. And so that's where we started looking. Obviously, we started looking in mining. And there we looked for what we call a lead donor. So we went to, and obviously this is dated, the story I'm telling you is about 6, 7 years old. We went to Anglo American and we said, not only do we want you to donate, we want you to be our lead donor. We want you to allow us to tell other people that you are supporting this initiative. And as we said that, I could see the whole room changing and the feel of it. You could see them going, that's not bad. We wouldn't mind going there. We wouldn't mind doing that. And we raised 20 million, which is what we needed, within a year. But that was research and feeling. And then in the initial meetings, I'll never forget the first meeting. We were in the boardroom at Anglo, and on one side of the table were all the Anglo people, and on the other side of the table was the delegation from the university, which was a deputy vice-chancellor and a dean, and me, and me, and me. And then after that, it was me working with their corporate, their departments, and it was left to us. So then there are trusts and foundations. Now there are a number of enormous bank of trusts and foundations around the world, and they're all very open and honest in putting up who they will and who they will not support. And many of them have never been approached by an organization in Africa, and so looking for allied support there. Now, the other thing is, if you're building a library, and if you haven't got Carnegie on board, you would start there. That would be a foundation that you would start with. Then we move on to the other one. This is the dream of all universities in Africa, the alumni department. And I worked with a university in Kenya who had a lot of older North American academics working, and they all said to me, but we got to do something about alumni. And yes, they did have to do something about alumni, but it wasn't going to be anything like what was done in America, because that group of students that we were working with then, on average, came from a family of 8 children, were the first generation to go to university. Their families suffered enormously to see that their children went to university. And now the university, or some people in the university, were saying, but it's payback time. Well, it is payback time, but it's payback time to their families. And that carries out in South Africa as well. So if you're not going to get money today from your alumni, then start building your alumni divisions. If you want to see a really good African alumni website, go to Strathmore University in Nairobi. And they have grasped it. They have said, this isn't for income generation, it's a loyalty program. And we are going to work with these people until they do become donors, and it may take 20 or 30 years. And they've done a wonderful job. On the other hand, some of the universities in South Africa, if you go to their alumni website, there's nothing. They couldn't be bothered. Now, what Strathmore did was they did get-togethers. The year of this, the faculty of that, and they brought graduates back onto campus all the time. And you can do that even if you are a brand new university. Then, of course, there are individuals of great wealth and individuals who have not got great wealth. My best individual story of great wealth is a woman who was 4 years ago considered the richest woman in South Africa. And she was very, very philanthropic. She had donated a lot of money to a lot of organizations. And I went to see her, and I thought, I'm not taking her a pen and pencil set. But I'll stop off at Woolies and buy her a bunch of flowers. Took them in, and she said to me, Heather, I wish you hadn't wasted your money on those flowers. And I thought, oh, God. So the next time I had to see her a year later, I took a DVD of a 20-minute shot of the incredible wealth the university had in African art that was being stored in a basement because they didn't have an art gallery. And I gave her that, and I didn't talk about it. I just said, this is the latest thing we've got. And the next morning she phoned me back and she said, I've got a problem with the DVD, it's not working. And I thought, just my luck. Then I thought, well, I'll jump into my car and come and bring you a new one. She said, no, I'll send my driver. And he came and picked it up, and then the following morning, I always think people test me. At about 7:45 in the morning, the phone rang, and she said, hello, Heather, and I said, hello, and she said, I found that DVD absolutely fascinating. If I gave you 10 million rand, would it help? I said, yes, that would be absolutely lovely. Thank you very much. So it's knowing them. You can't walk in and give people pen and pencil sets. On the other hand, I got a very generous donation from a man in England who I took a university tie to, and he had never actually graduated. And he thought being presented with this tie was the greatest thing he'd ever had. And so it's, I don't know, it's having a sixth sense, it's doing the match, it's putting the people and the project together. Right, so the next one's wills. And some universities actually employ people to cultivate older people to write the university into their wills. I have two stories to tell you. The one is of the widow of a civil engineering graduate who was living in Pretoria. And when she died, we discovered she'd left the university 10 million rand. I've got another story to tell you of the man who was employed by Anglo-American to lay out Welkom. He was an architect. And he was incredibly rich, had a lot of money. As he got older, he became blind and deaf, so it was very difficult to visit him. He was very demanding of us. He wanted us to visit, bring in books from the library, but the academics within the university were already saying, well, I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it. Well, about 6 months before he died, he met a lady. And guess what? Nobody got anything. The lady got it all. So you need to be very, very careful about that. And endowments are wonderful to build up. More an American concept. Some of the big universities in South Africa have endowments, and that is the way to go in the long term. But if you're a new university or a university from an underprivileged background, it wouldn't be the easiest way to go. There's one thing I want to just warn you about, and that's getting gifts in kind. When building, you need to be very careful, and purchasing people here will know this. What appears to you to be the most wonderful gift can, when you present it to the university, involve you in a lot of trouble. When we were doing some of our buildings at Wits, I was often offered cabling. And I'd go, oh, thank you so much, you're so charming, to be then shot down by everybody that was the wrong cabling and it didn't match specifications, and what were they going to do with it, and who was going to fetch it. And so be very, very careful never to accept gifts in kind if you haven't checked out the end of the continuum, that in fact this is a gift. So you need to take care. The contracts are signed with donors. This is a new South African thing. That the funds are spent where as designated, and that you're transparent when it comes to costs. Don't fib. Don't try and fool them, because it just doesn't work. Check out what and how the fundraisers are selling. So, marketing. Find the money for a case for support. Have funding proposals with lots of pics. You don't need to tell so much, you need to show more. What you show is more credible than what you tell. PR media support, documentaries, an annual report for that division and department, website with a giving portal. And in fact, that is wonderful. You'll find that most individuals will give to you on Saturdays and Sundays. So you have this vision of people who are very busy during the week and are bored on Sunday afternoon and go in and look at their university website. Make giving easy for people. And then you do need corporate gifts for some people along the line. What are expectations? What are donors entitled to expect? You need to take care of a donor's ego, be that a company or an individual. You need to thank, and thank again until you feel as if you're being repetitive. Be very careful about naming buildings and spaces after people. As those of you who work in older universities have seen, times have changed. So you need to be very careful about that. However, guest speaker invitations can work magic. The Vice-Chancellor and I went to see the CEO of a big mining house, international mining house in London, And I just thought, this man's testing us. Number one, it was the middle of London, and our appointment was 7:30 in the morning. So this guy was saying, I want to see if these people are from my country. And we arrived at 7:30, and we went in, and he listened to us. But he was very non-committal. And I had read in the business section that his company was planning to take over another company. And I said to him, would you consider being a guest speaker at our business school? And he said, yes, actually, I would like that very much. And I'm not exaggerating, ladies and gentlemen. He gave us 20 million rand there and then. There was a glass lift in this building. Now, I'm not a tall woman, and I'm not a young woman, but my vice chancellor was younger than I am and shorter than I am. So you've got to imagine this glass lift in London with two people jumping up and down. And when we got to the bottom, he said to me, Heather, are you sure we heard properly? And all we had to do for him was set up aside a lecture theatre, help with the marketing and the PR, and have him as a guest speaker. Obviously, speakers to your graduations also make people feel good. That's what you want. People who feel good. People who feel cared for, people who feel treasured, are far more generous. Reports, both the great and the bad. Now listen, this is very important. Fundraisers and younger fundraisers feel that their reports have always got to be good, good, good. And it's not true. The people that you're reporting to work in the real world. They know that it's not sunshine and glory all the way. They know that there are problems. So report that put that in your reports. Your role, you as an individual, and I don't mind whether you're Henny or who you are, remain interested. Ask questions. Check up. What's happening there? Did Fashinis come on board or didn't they? Follow up, motivate, and encourage. People can become terribly, terribly despondent. I once spent a year of my life chasing an oil company for big funding towards a health building, and they led me up the garden path right to the end. And when the presentation was done in Paris, it was dropped. And I actually felt so suicidal and miserable, and I got a rose from the person I reported to. So encourage people. It is hard. It is hard to fundraise in South Africa and in Africa right now, and I think anywhere it's hard. But I assure you it's not impossible. Thank you very much.